Welcome to Just the Dis. My name is Brian. We talk about Blu-rays here. And for this episode, I am going to talk about Criterion. I know a lot of people are doing this. The Barnes & Noble sale is on now, and there's a whole lot to be considered, and a lot of people have offered recommendations. I'm going to do a little bit of that, and I'm going to talk about a few things that I picked up during the sale. I still have Bringing Up Baby and Deep Cover on the way. Pre-ordered. I don't know when I'll actually get them, but they were at the 50% off price. But in terms of my actual pickups, let's start with the big one. The World of Wong Kar-wai. This is a beautiful set. However, the packing, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. This flap goes back in here, although I can't really get it back in without bending the top of this in a bad way. So I'm just kind of leaving it out for now, which is kind of lame. But obviously this is how this pack looks. This is how big it is. It's a beast. And it is also a little tough to get this stuff in and out, which I don't like. You got to be able to get the material in and out of your pack. Anyway, so this is the book that comes with it. Whoops. Pretty nice, thick, and yeah, no, just a really solid book that you get with it. And again, I don't love this kind of packaging as much. I get that it's cool to fold it out and stuff, but it's just hard to easily get at the disc I want. Anyway, not to be all grumpy, because it's a beautiful set, and you've got a ton of great Wong Kar-wai films included here, just for days and days. Fallen Angels, Happy Together, In the Mood for Love Again, 2046, Chungking Express in that new version or whatever, Days of Being Wild, and As Tears Go By. So you're really getting an incredible collection of his films. I'm not even going to try and put this back right now. But that's that set. That's 50% off, and I was sort of waiting for the sale to see if I wanted to do it, and I couldn't help but do it. I wanted it. What else have I got here? In terms of pickups, I've got Irma Vep. This is the Olivier Assayas film, which, you know what? I'll be honest, I have never seen this movie. I've always meant to see it, and I've heard it's great. And so I thought, well, this is the time to do it, a Criterion edition. And it is, let's see, Breakthrough stars, Olivier Assayas' Livewire International Breakthrough stars Magnetic Maggie Chung as a version of herself, a Hong Kong action movie star who arrives in Paris to play the latex-clad lead in a remake of Louis Fiad's classic silent crime serial Les Vampires. What she finds is a behind-the-scenes tangle of barely controlled chaos as egos clash, romantic attractions simmer, and an obsessive director, cannily cast Jean-Pierre Léaud from Truffaut's films, drives himself to drink to realize his vision. So it's a, making a movie kind of movie, and Maggie Chung looks like really great in this, so had to pick it up. Got some excellent features on this. It's a 2 Blu-ray set. So this is a must for me. This is one that was on my list for a while. And then on top of that, I went with one classic. This directed by, let's see. I want to say this is directed by, no, I'm going to get that wrong, I'm sure. But History is Made at Night. Oh, Borzage. Yeah, I thought it was. Suffused with intoxicating romanticism, History is Made at Night is a sublime pan to love from Frank Borzage, classic Hollywood, supreme poet of carnal and spiritual desire. On the run through Europe from her wealthy, cruelly possessive husband, an unhappy socialite, played by Jean Arthur, is thrown together by fate with a suave stranger, Charles Boyer, and soon the two are bound in a consuming, seemingly impossible affair. Yeah, no, I remember digging this one quite a bit, and it's one of those movies where the two leads, you don't know if they're going to get together or not, and there's a lot of forces working against them, but I love Jean Arthur, like love her. Like, she's just one of my favorite classic actors of the 30s, 40s, 50s. Like, she's just always great for me. And Charles Boyer is a guy that I've slowly come to appreciate more and more. I mean, obviously people know him from Love Affair and things like that, but he's very charming in this. He's also very charming in Clooney Brown, which is another Criterion you could pick up, the Ernst Lubitsch film with Jennifer Jones, I think. And that's a really nice screwball too. But this is a little screwball, a little drama, a little not thriller, but some tension. But I remember really digging it, and it was unavailable for quite some time until this Blu-ray. And this has a new conversation between Hervé Dumont, who wrote a book on Frank Borzage, and film historian Peter Cowie. Interview with Fran Smith-Neme about Borzage. She's always great. And audio excerpts from a 1958 interview with him. Yeah, so that should be good. Some other new stuff to consider. I'm going to focus mostly on newer films because I'm assuming there's a lot of people who picked up some stuff during the last sale, so most of the things I'm going to recommend have come out between the last sale and this sale. This, of course, is Sam Fuller's Pickup on South Street from 1953. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, Sam Fuller film, starring the great Richard Widmark, and he plays a pickpocket working New York City subways who picks the pocket of a woman who happens to have some microfilm that could give secrets to the Soviets, and the FBI or the CIA or the U.S. government basically figures out that he's involved in this theft of the microfilm, which he doesn't care about at all. But he also isn't about to admit that he stole anything because he's like, I don't know if he's a 3-time loser or what, but it would be bad news for him to admit being a pickpocket still, because that's just how he lives. He lives in a shack out by the river. His refrigerator for his beer is basically a wooden box that he lowers into the river to cool off his drinks. So he's living very hand to mouth and just barely getting by, but he's clever enough about himself and what he needs to get done, that he knows not to turn himself in over something like this. But it's an interesting premise, this idea of a pickpocket stealing this microfilm, unknowingly causing a potential international incident and having to be wrangled by the police. And it's also got a great performance by Thelma Ritter. And yeah, it's just a good, crime noirish thing from Sam Fuller. Some great Sam Fuller dialogue. One of my favorite scenes has one of the characters eating in a Chinese restaurant, being questioned by, I think, one of the feds, and he's asking him for information, and he puts some money down on the table. The guy's eating with chopsticks, and he picks the money off the table with the chopsticks, puts it in his pocket, and goes back to eating his noodles. It's a great little moment in a film full of great moments. But so this is long overdue for a Blu-ray upgrade. New 4K digital restoration, which is wonderful. New interview with critic Imogen Sarah Smith, the author of In Lonely Places, Film Noir Beyond the City. She's just a film noir expert all around. Always does great interviews for Criterion. Interview from 1989 with director Sam Fuller, conducted by Richard Schickel. Cinematic Cinemas, Fuller, a 1982 French television program in which the director discusses the making of the film, Hollywood theater radio adaptation, and more. Really great movie. Like I said, if you're into Fuller or, classic noir from the 40s and 50s, this is a must pick up. Another new one, and I know this is apparently a known film, but I had not seen this until this year. This is called Streetwise. It's a fascinating documentary about street kids in the early 80s. It came out in 84, so circa that period. Street kids in Seattle, and it follows a group of them. And, you know, some of them are turning tricks. Some of them are doing some petty theft or con stuff to get by. But they all sort of have found a way to exist. With some of them, we get to see their parental relationships. This girl in particular, we see her mom and sort of what her home life is like. And it's truly, I mean, it just blew me away. It absolutely blew me away. And she actually, I think, is the subject of the second documentary you get here, Tiny, The Life of Aaron Blackwell, which I'm very much looking forward to checking out. So you get Streetwise, and then you get this other documentary from 2016. It says, in 1983, director Martin Bell, photographer Mary Ellen Mark, and journalist Cheryl McCall set out to tell the stories of the homeless and runaway teenagers living on the margins in Seattle. Streetwise follows an unforgettable group of kids who survive by hustling, panhandling, and dumpster diving. Its most haunting, enduring figure is the iron-willed 14-year-old Aaron Blackwell, a.k.a. Tiny. The project's follow-up, Tiny, The Life of Aaron Blackwell, completed 30 years later, draws on the filmmaker's long relationship with the subject, now a mother of 10. Blackwell reflects with Mark on the journey they've experienced together, from Blackwell's battles with addiction to her regrets to her dreams for her children, even as she sees them repeat her own struggles. Taken together, the two films create a devastatingly frank, empathetic portrait of lost youth growing up far too soon. So like I said, I can't wait to check out that extra documentary, but Streetwise alone is absolutely one of my favorite documentaries that I've seen in recent memory. Just so good. An interesting companion piece to something like Over the Edge, which I talked about recently on a collection update. Like, not to say that the kids in this are exactly like the kids in Over the Edge, because those kids mostly do have and live with their parents. These kids are a little bit more, they're like one step removed from the kind of kids in Over the Edge. You know, like they're getting by, but I just think they feel similarly authentic in a certain way. Well, obviously they are authentic, they're real, but in terms of the comparison to the kids in Over the Edge. So new high-definition digital restoration of Streetwise. Same goes for the second film, supervised by Martin Bell. New audio commentary on Streetwise featuring Bell. New interview with Bell about photographer Mary Ellen Mark. New interview with Streetwise editor Nancy Baker. 4 short films by Bell. Tiny at 20, The Amazing Plastic Lady, Aaron, and Streetwise Revisited. So he basically has a series of films on Aaron Blackwell, and something along the lines of Michael Apted's, 27 Up, 25 Up, the Up series. It sounds like with a single subject. So if you're into that kind of following a person through their life kind of documentary filmmaking, this is the whole package, really. But I just can't recommend this documentary high enough. It's just one of my favorite things I've seen this year. So check out Streetwise. It is part of the sale. And then just in terms of a few other recommendations, Nightmare Alley, I did a full review of this one. Another great noir from 1947, with Tyrone Power and Colleen Gray, Joan Blondell. Basically about a sort of a con man who joins up with a carny group and ends up getting in over his head. And I don't really want to describe it too much more than that, but there's different con artist stuff involved, and there's geeks involved, and this has a really nice fold out booklet, but then it also has these wonderful tarot cards, half dozen of them, that I think are just an incredible addition, especially once you've seen the movie. It sort of adds this other layer. So I do like that. Criterion doesn't always do that, and they don't have to, but it's an excellent addition to this one. And I just can't recommend this movie enough. One of my favorite movies that had, as to yet not been on Blu-ray, came out on Blu-ray this year. Pick it up. Gotta get it. Let's see here. What else can I recommend? I've got some more stuff. Okay, this is another recent one. Defending Your Life came out this year. This is a wonderful film from Albert Brooks, one of his best. about Judgment City, a place where people go between their mortal lives and the afterlife, where they are judged in a pseudo courtroom setting and forced to see scenes from their lives that sort of give some indication as to whether or not they've gotten over their fear. And that is the indicator of whether or not they should move on, to the next level. And, the character played by Albert Brooks is a very nervous sort of dude who doesn't necessarily look like he's going to make it or not. And he meets some other people while he's there. And the Judgment City whole setup is great. His quote-unquote lawyer guy is played by Rip Torn, and who's incredible in this. There's a really great cast overall. It's like Lee Grant, Buck Henry, some other familiar faces, and of course Meryl Streep. But I love this film, and it's a really nice edition of it. A movie you could complement it with is the Powell and Pressburger film A Matter of Life and Death, one of their best films, also about the afterlife, so to speak. You have David Niven plays a World War II RAF pilot who is talking to an American woman who's working with the RAF on the radio as his plane is about to go down. She's played by Kim Hunter. And he jumps out of the plane thinking he'll never see her. They have sort of a moment as they're talking on the radio, and his plane crashes, but somehow he survives jumping out of the plane with no parachute. And we find out it's sort of a clerical error on the part of those involved in dealing with the afterlife. And so he is put in a position where he also sort of has to defend his position, being left on Earth in this case, as opposed to being in the, space between. But it's got a really interesting portrayal of the limbo area between heaven and hell. And it is interesting in that as opposed to the heavenly place being in color and the movie being in black and white, the earthbound stuff is in black and white, and the heaven/judgment space is in black and white. And it's really beautifully designed, and I would think definitely an influence on Defending Your Life in one way or another, but just a great Powell and Pressburger film. These are both films that came up on an episode of Pure Cinema we did with Richard Kelly when he was talking about science fiction and fantasy films that he loves. I think these were both his picks, so I'm stealing that from him. And then, of course, if you like Albert Brooks, definitely pick up Lost in America, one of the great road movie, dropout movie comedies ever. I'm not going to go too deep on that. Just know that you should get it. And then a couple paranoid thrillers from Alan Pakula. You have Clute, which is one of the earliest things he did in this series, and shot by Gordon Willis. And Gordon Willis also shot The Parallax View, both incredible. I mean, obviously we know he shot The Godfather. He has the reputation as the Prince of Darkness. He definitely proves that reputation to a degree in Clute. There's a lot of incredible scenes that have a frame filled mostly with black in Clute. It's just a great thriller about a man who disappears, who then a detective played by Donald Sutherland goes to try and figure out what happened. And the last person to seemingly have seen him was a call girl named Bree Daniels, played by Jane Fonda, who won an Academy Award for her performance here. She's incredible. But it's a really creepy thriller, and it's just a slowly creeps up on you kind of creepy. But I love it, and it's just beautiful. And the Blu-ray absolutely accentuates the photography. It looks wonderful. Yeah, it's definitely worth getting. There's some nice features on here as well. New 4K scan, etc. And The Parallax View is one of my favorite 70s paranoid thrillers, period. And I don't want to go too deep into it. It has to do with an assassination plot where a prominent senator is killed, and then people that were around the event suddenly start disappearing. And Warren Beatty plays an investigative journalist who sort of sees what's happening and wants to sort of figure it out, but that can be dangerous. And we'll just leave it there. but a great Beatty performance and a great paranoid thriller. Yeah, I just love this movie. I absolutely love it. So another one I was so glad to see get a Criterion Blu-ray. Just a few more here. The Gunfighter. This is a new one for me in terms of I hadn't seen this before. Gregory Peck. I'm trying to see who else is in this that anybody would know. Not a ton of people. Skip Homeyer, I think, plays a really pivotal role. Basically, Peck plays like a really well-known gunfighter who, I can't remember what his claim to fame is. He stars as Jimmy Ringo, an infamous gunslinger looking to hang up his holsters and start a new life, but whose reputation draws him inexorably into a cycle of violence and revenge. Basically, I can't remember what he did, but he is well known as being a great gunfighter, but that brings all the challengers out, people that want to take him on. And so he's had to kill a lot of people that he warned, like, don't do this. Don't draw on me in this bar. I'm just trying to have a drink. And he's ending up having to kill people. And that makes the law upset. It makes, the people that know the people he killed upset. And it's just something he wants to get away from and can't seem to get out of. So it's a really interesting movie in terms of the morality of it, in terms of the character and where he's at. And it's a great Peck performance. I totally dug this. Let's see here. Matewan, one of my favorite John Sayles films, about the true story of a West Virginia coal town where the local miners struggle to form a union, and it rose to a pitch of an all-out war in 1920. That's all I'm going to say about it, except the cast includes Chris Cooper in his film debut. It includes James Earl Jones, Mary McDonnell, Will Oldham. I'm blanking on. David Strathairn is great in this. But yeah, it's just a really great, tense, lots of anti-union people trying to discourage, in quotes, any union building activity. And it gets tense. And it's well scripted by Sayles. Legitimately one of his best films, and that's saying something, So really great stuff. New 4K restoration. I love this movie. Really good. And speaking of movies I love, I think the last one I'm going to recommend is this one. One of my favorite screwball comedies of all time, The Lady Eve from 1941. I want to say this is the same year as Sullivan's Travels, which you should also grab if you don't have it. That is fantastic as well. In fact, getting both of these, get the Palm Beach Story. Get all the Sturges you can. They're all great. But The Lady Eve is the one for me. That's my favorite of his films, I think. About an heir to a beer fortune, played by Henry Fonda, who is up the Amazon studying snakes when he is brought aboard a riverboat, which happens to have some con artists, some card sharps, played by Barbara Stanwyck, and her father is played by Charles Coburn. And they sort of entangle him, and it gets complicated. I'll say, I don't want to give away where it goes, but it's incredibly clever, very funny, very sexy, especially for a film from 1941. There's some sort of seduction scenes in here where Barbara Stanwyck is trying to seduce Henry Fonda, and she is as sexy as any actor has ever been in a movie in the 1940s or 50s. She just really sells it, and she is outstanding as this character. And Fonda is really great too, and Charles Coburn is great. Eugene Pallette, Bill Demarest, Eric Blore. They really pull out all the Preston Sturges regulars. And yeah, I just love this movie. Can't recommend it enough. That's it. I wanted to keep it brief. Hopefully you're enjoying this sale. Hopefully you've picked up some Criterions that you've had on your wish list for a long time. But if any of these seem appealing, I do recommend picking them up. So trot down to Barnes & Noble or check them out online and see what they have that you might be interested in. Hopefully this helped. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.